sleep, and then I got to sleep, and then in the middle of the night I woke up, and then I should have just, got up and done what I was supposed to do rather than say, oh, I'm just too tired to do more sleep. So when I got to the church this morning, and I'm praying and getting ready, all of a sudden the Holy Spirit said, well, you didn't get up last night, so this morning, guess what? You gotta get ready. And so this is a really good sermon right here. I'm just not preaching it this morning. The other night, Sharon and I were watching a very good movie. It was about a family that was struggling. And I really thought, it's a nice movie, But, obviously, the Holy Spirit said something to my heart that we needed to deal with. So I'm going to do that this morning. And I told Judy, all my notes are on here. So she's under a little pressure this morning, but she'll do well because she's good. So we're going to start with prayer, and then we'll go into our sermon this morning. We thank you, Father, for your goodness to us, for your many blessings, and especially, Father, when we are obedient. I pray, Father, that the words of my mouth and the meditation, Lord, that you put upon my heart would be acceptable in my sight, my rock and my redeemer, in Jesus' name. As I was contemplating what to say this morning, or as I was putting this together, and as I was watching the movie the other night, one of the things that was really brought to my attention in our North American Christianity is how important it is that we understand that our relationship with God is not just something that we add on to everything else that we do. It isn't just, oh look, I have become a Christian, but I'm also still doing all of this other stuff. In order for God to have influence in our lives, we absolutely need Him to be the very core of who we are. Of our relationship with God is core. How many of you know what these are?
Golf balls.
Golf balls, right? How many of you know that when you build a golf ball or a baseball, that you start where? From the core, right? You start at the core in order to make a good golf ball. Now these are 3 different kinds of golf balls, and each one performs in a different way, and they fly differently. But it has nothing to do with the outside of the, it all has to do with the core. Now, when I was younger, I was really curious. And you can, if you are determined, you can saw a golf ball in half. But you better have some determination. My friend and I, when the original, this was many years ago, we took the golf ball apart. Did you know what the original golf balls had underneath the surface, underneath the cover? Elastic bands. Hundreds and hundreds of elastic bands all wrapped together. And at the very core was a really hard rubber. But the bands were wrapped around and around and around and around this core until you got to the outside. Now, golf balls are more expensive. So I never taken one of these apart to see what's on the inside. So I'm trusting that when they tell me that there are levels or, but no elastic bands, I'm going to believe them because, they're not cheap anymore. But we start with the core whenever we're building something. And this morning, we're going to look from the outside in, but the reality is the last point is the most important point, because if we don't get God as our core, everything else is going to fall apart. It doesn't matter what kind of cover you put on the outside of this ball. If the core is faulty, it will not fly right, it will not roll right, it will not perform the way the manufacturer said it would perform. And so we need to understand that unless God is at the very core of who we are, if He is not central, if He's not sitting on the throne, then the likelihood of us to live and to have an enjoyable, happy, overcoming Christian life, we're going to fly differently, right? Like, take away all of my faults when I'm hitting a golf ball, right? And, you know, you've seen it, Judy. You've seen it, Barry. I can go right, I can go left, and occasionally I go down the middle, right? That has nothing to do with the ball. The ball still performs the way it's supposed to. The guy hitting it has got an issue. But we, in our lives, want to fly true to what God has called us to be, who our inner core is, who we are in Christ. And if He is off on one side, we are going to have struggle after struggle after struggle, and we're going to flounder. As I listened to Gloria this morning and all of the things that just kind of come piling in on top of that family, I thought, if God wasn't the core, if God wasn't at the center, how easy would it be for us to get off track? How easy would it be for us to become discouraged? How easy would it be for us to, fall apart in those moments of time? And we see that in people who call themselves Christians, who just add God as part of their life, not as the core of their life, right? And so this morning we're going to take time to look at that. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 11 says, "For no other foundation can anyone lay than that which is laid, which is Jesus Christ." So when somebody comes along and tries to tell you that something else is the foundation, that something else is more important than Jesus, is something or someone else's, if something or someone is trying to take that center point in your life, you need to discern that so that you can put them back in the place that they need to be. And our society is constantly trying to do that. Our society is constantly trying to displace the thing that is the person of Christ who is the most important. And we make light of it, or we turn it into, I'm going to be very careful, but we have to be careful that we don't weaponize Christianity. That we don't make Christianity a weapon to be used in theaters of war that it was never meant to be used in. The gospel of Jesus Christ is the hope of the world, not the great big club that we wander around beating people over the head with. It is not to be weaponized. It is hope. It is love. It is light. It is what we should be doing. And so we look at this. And so for no other foundation can anyone lay. I mean, we talked about the golf balls, but if you ever try laying a foundation that is not right, you'll find out very quickly as you build the building that you're trying to build on that your foundation is going to give you away, right? Years ago, they used to put up these garages, and some of you probably remember them. Remember they would put down the bricks, cinder blocks, that would go up, and they wouldn't put anything, how would I say, the less scrupulous builders wouldn't put anything inside of the bricks to hold them there, and a good strong storm would come along, and all you had was a bunch of bricks scattered all over the place, because there was nothing for them to sit on. There was no foundation underneath them, and there was nothing inside of them to hold them one to another. That's why we're called living stones, because God is joining us together one to another. All right, let's start here. So some of the things that start us down this road is, first of all, what the world says is your job. Your vocation is number one. And we can get lost very easily in our vocation. We can, and hear me out really well here. There is nothing wrong with you enjoying the job that you have, enjoying the vocation that you have. That, if it is right down your lane, and it's all of the things that you love to do, you should enjoy doing the job that God has called you to do. But it should never be number one in your life. A vocation A job is just a means to an end. And we can look at it as a means to commit your works to the Lord, and your thoughts will be established, right? And so many of us we just want our job to just be a place where we get our money so that we can go do the things that we want. But it says if you commit your works to the Lord, the works of your hands. I have a little secret to tell you, and I don't know if he's going to appreciate this a lot, but I think that Barry likes working at the arena a lot. I think he's working more now that he's retired, and he's enjoying it. But it's not just a means to an end. Because if it was just about getting money, you're working, your pay is way too small. That volunteering thing, you'll never get rich on that, you know. But you see, the thing is people see willingness. They see a willingness to serve, right? If we commit our works to the Lord, right, our thoughts will be, our minds become at rest. How many of you fellas have been working away, and you get home at night, and after a good day's work, you just kind of sit down and go, and there's this peaceful rest about knowing that you've done a good job, right? It's not just about the work. It's about when we have God at our center, that we can have this peace, this sense of fulfillment, you know? At this moment in time in our backyard, we have what I call the jungle happening back there. And Sharon calls it her garden, I call it the jungle. Because she asked me to go pick beans, and it was like, I said, the peas are trying to strangle the beans, and while that's happening, the tomato plants are sneaking over and trying to do in the beans at the same time. You can't really move through that garden very well. She said to me, well, we need to hill the potatoes. I looked and went, yeah, that's a good idea, huh? Where are we going to get the soil from? Because they've all went crazy, you know, and so you have to kick stuff out of your way so you can find the dirt to hill the potato. But there's a sense that you've done something. There's a sense of accomplishing something as you sit at your table, and there's nothing like fresh beans and peas and that kind of thing as you. But just being able to do it. This isn't what we've done. What did we do? We prepared the ground. We planted the seed. We didn't go, come on, little bean, grow. You know? It did what it naturally does. The right temperature, the right amount of rain, and away it goes. The same way as we commit our works to God, then our minds are at ease, because we give it this old saying, an honest day's work for an honest day's. Okay. Second, next one, it says, bondservants, obey in all things your masters according to the flesh, not with eye service as men pleasers, but in the sincerity of heart, fearing God. And whatever you do it heartily as to the Lord and not to men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the reward of the inheritance, for you serve the Lord Christ. Remember this, that whatever you're doing, whatever place you're working at, how many of you, okay, here's the question. Stop, back up, wagon here. Okay? How many of you know people that work twice as hard when their boss is watching them than when they're not watching them? Yeah. If you don't know people like that, then you have not been in the workforce. You know people that when the boss is around, they just make themselves look like they're just going and they're just to work. And the minute he's off somewhere, they're like, oh, boy, am I glad he's gone. And then they sit down and they have their bottle of Coke or whatever and they slough off, right? It's the people that work the same when the boss is there as when he's not there that people appreciate. Don't just give eye service, right? But do it as unto the Lord, right? That whatever you do, if you do it unto the Lord, you're doing it as a sacrifice to Him. It's not about, oh, the amount of money I'm getting. It's not about, well, I'm going to get a notice for this and I'm going to get some kind of reward because, oh, I've been just working so hard. No, it's not about that at all. Because God sees what you're doing, whether the boss is there or not. Right? I remember just the other day I was out golfing with, at the seniors there, and we were number 5. So when you start at number 5, you have to put down the closest to the pin on number 4, and then you have to pick it up. And I told Henry as I was leaving, I said, I know who's going to win closest to the pin. It's going to be our group. Doesn't matter how close we are to the pin, we're still going to be closest to the pin. And as we got there, Graham says to me, are we really going to be close to the pin? I says, no. I says, it's not about what Henry sees. I says, I have someone else that's watching what I'm doing. You know, we need to understand that God sees what we're doing. And we can have fun and joke around, but when the reality, where the rubber meets the road is that we're doing this for God. I'm doing this for the Lord. I want people to see that integrity and honesty is a big part of who I am, not because I want them to look, but because I know who's watching me every day. I know who's keeping count. And I don't want to disappoint my Father who is in heaven. I don't want to disappoint him. It's the same way as I didn't want to disappoint my earthly Father. So we're going to move along quickly here. I know we have potluck. Second reading that we have are friends and acquaintances. You notice we're building this from the outside in. We're not really want to do this, but it's one of our priorities, is it not? Right? Friends. I noticed this when we were growing up. You can go to the next one too if you want to. Friends are important. Proverbs says, ointment and perfume delight the heart, and the sweetness of a man's strength is delight by hearty counsel. Do not forsake your own friend or your father's friend, nor go to your brother's house in the day of your calamity. Better is a neighbor nearby than a brother far away. Friends. One thing I noticed when, as a parent, as we were growing up, is that when my kids were small, that they want, what we said was important. As they got to be teenagers, there was these other people called friends, right? And we enjoyed our kids' friends. We were really happy when they would have one of their stayovers, There wasn't a sleepover, forget that. There's no such thing as a sleepover. When kids reach a certain age, it's what we call a wakeover. They're awake all night, We just asked them to keep it down below a dull roar in the basement, Eventually they went to our friend's house down the road and we figured they were fairly secure there because it was an RCMP house. So we figured, if it got too loud, Mr. McDermott would just go down there and lay down the law. That would be it. But there's something about good friends, isn't there? We need friends. Family is really important, but friends are the people that we choose. That's what the old saying is. You choose your friends, but you're stuck with your family, right? And we need to have good friends. But how do we choose good friends? What's the basis of choosing a good friend? What is our level of choosing a good friend? Someone who has the same interests as us. Usually gets drawn together, right? What else causes us to make friends with people? How many of you are still friends with the parents of your children's friends? You end up in places where you're, what else is a basic connection? What about trust? What about trust? Real friends you can trust, right? You can tell them things that that they'll never share with anybody else. Trust is a huge part of a good friend. Another thing is knowing that they're going to be there. I think Barry, I count on Barry being a good friend, because when I've locked myself out of my house a couple times, I just had to phone Barry, and he had a key, right? You just don't trust anybody with the key to your house. And thank goodness he had a key. Right? We need people that we can count on, that are going to be there. If they say that they're going to be there, they're going to be there. Now, what does it say? It says, do not forsake your own friend or your father's friend, or go to your brother's house the day of your calamity. Better is a neighbor nearby than a brother far away. Better is a friend that's close to you than a family member that's miles away. We need. And not only should the family of God be family, but we also should be friends. That's what's important. People that are nearby when you need when you're in dire straits. I was going to get a hold of Dale this week to let her know to pray for my brother-in-law, because he has shingles. If anyone will know what it's like to have shingles. He's got it all down his leg. And it's the worst case of shingles that the doctor has ever seen. He needs prayer. But I thought, you know what? If you've ever had shingles, you have empathy for what he's going through. You know? So, but better to have somebody who knows to pray. Right? Friends. Let's keep going. Our next one. Pleasure, relaxation, recreation. We all like that. We all need that. But our society has began to spend all of its time on the pleasure, on relaxation, and on recreation. It wants less time working and make more money so that we can do what? Spend more money and more time doing something that is recreational. They say that the stress level in our society continues to go up, and therefore the need for play continues to increase. What does the Bible say? And he said to them, the Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. Therefore the Son of Man is also the Lord of the Sabbath. We also know what it says in the Old Testament. 6 days shall you labor, and on the seventh you need to rest. Not only you, but your oxen and your donkeys. And why? Because they need rest as well. And there's a great difference between rest and relaxation and recreation. When we take a quick look, rest means that you cease from the labor that you would normally do. That's resting. To cease from the labor that you would normally do. Now, that's why in the Jewish society, you'll find in the Orthodox families that they make their meal for the Sabbath the day before, so that they don't have to they don't wash any dishes, they don't cook any food, they don't turn on any power. Because they believe that you're to rest from the labor that you would normally do on those 6 days. And so they prepare for the Sabbath on the 6th day, and on the 7th day they rest. But they don't just rest. There's also relaxation. You can relax, right? If you see me relaxing, it's sometimes, I said to my wife, I said to her, I have my boat. I've got a boat. I said, I think I'm going to name my boat The Office. When somebody phones me and they say, where are you, Pastor? I'm in the office. But we need a place where we can also relax. And relaxing means getting sometimes away from the place. Because how many of you know that if you're at home, you are probably not necessarily relaxing? Right? You're at home, and there's always something to do when you're at home, and there's the need for you to relax, to be able to get away from the everyday stress back and forth. And there's recreation. Do you know what recreation really means? Recreate. Recreate. It's about restoring, building back up again, those reserves of energy, you know. And sometimes, you know, that's why playing frisbee and going swimming, and here's the Jewish take on that, recreation. It says, on the Sabbath, we do things that you would not normally do on any other day of the week. Their focus begins with God in the morning, and their focus ends with God as the day closes for them, which is 6 o'clock. But in between time, they rest, they relax, and they recreate. They do things that they would not normally do on any other day. And sometimes when we have taken and made this pleasure the core of who we are, we're missing really what it's meant to be for us as people. If God is our center, God wants us to rest. He wants us to relax. He wants us to have pleasure. But it's not the core of who we are. Just like job, vocation, is not the core of who we are. Just like friends and neighbors are not the core of who we are. Because if that becomes the core of who we are, then we are missing something. We are going to be off tilt a little bit. Next one. And then we have family and relatives. You know, like I said, stuck with your family and your relatives. But it's not always a bad thing. And I've shared with you some of my stories of my uncle that came from off the mission field and the time that we would spend together, and we enjoyed being with family and friends and relatives. Psalm 127, verse 3 and 5 says, "Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord. The fruit of the womb is a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior, so are the children of one's youth. Happy is the man who has his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but shall speak with their enemies in the gate." Now, you know what? You can have one child and your quiver can be full. You hear me? Yeah, you can have 2 children and your quiver can be full. I have family that I know and they had 15 children and their quiver was very full. But our family, our children, our challenge as Christian parents is to raise our children to love God, to have a relationship with God that is separate from ours. We are to be the example before them of what a person who follows God should look like. I'm sometimes not very surprised when I read statistics that say that young people who've been raised in a Christian family and go on to become into university quickly leave their faith. Because sometimes the example that we leave our children is not what we taught them. It's what they caught from us. That's really important. Our love of God, our love of His Word, our love of His people, our desire to see people come to Jesus Christ. It's what they catch from us, not always what we teach them. Because what we're really teaching them is how we're living our lives in front of them. And that's why it's so vitally important that our relationship with Jesus Christ is the very core of who we are. Because if it isn't, you can't fool kids. If Jesus is not the very core of our reason for living, kids catch very quickly. If work is it, they really catch quickly. Well, mom and dad are too busy at work. Mom and dad are too busy having fun. Mom and dad are too busy being the good neighbor. They're trying to be that person that everybody says, if you know anything about computers, you soon can be the IT person for your neighborhood, right? He knows, and it feels good. But is it the most important thing in your life? If you're the cook that everybody looks to, what is it? So, our relationship with God has got to be the most important thing. It is the very core of who we are. And if He is the center of our life, seek ye first the kingdom, His kingdom, and His righteousness, and all these things will be. If the core of the golf ball is correct, if it's completely centered in here, it will fly straight. If Jesus, our relationship with Jesus, is centered in our life, then no matter what happens, we will fly straight. We will fly straight. I remember a number of weeks ago now, I was at the golf course and we were golfing with the seniors, and we had that incredible wind came up. I remember hitting into the wind with the putt, and we all just stood there and watched the ball went, and we thought the ball had went a long ways. It went straight, but it went up into that wind. The wind held the ball there, and as far as it looked like it went a long ways, and it came down. When we went out to look for the ball, we came out a lot sooner than what we thought we should. But it was still in the middle of the field. And if life is the fairway that we're driving down, it would be a good thing that our lives, in the center of our core, is Jesus Christ. He can't be on the edge. He can't be the cover over the ball. He can't be just off center. He can't be on one of the rims that we looked at. He needs to be in the very center, because if he's not, when the trials of life, when you hit the wind, if you have a little bit of a slice and you hit into the wind, you'll have a lot of slice, because the wind will take your ball. I'm right-handed, so that's why I'm going this way. If you're on the silly side of life, you go this way. We call left-handed golfers the silly siders, and they go left. But when we run into opposition, when we run into the difficult things of life, if God's not the center of our life, it's very easy to get pulled off one way or the other. Into the ditch of depression, or into the water hazard of anger and bitterness. But when we are centered on God, it may hold us up. We might not go as far as we thought we would go with that first drive. But we'll still be in the middle of the fairway. We'll be still going in the right direction. So don't let God just be an add-on, Let Him be the core of who you are. And He will direct your life. Seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all of the rest, all of the accessories, He will be added unto you. He will keep you on the straight and narrow as you walk this life. Let's pray. Father, we give you thanks. We really, truly desire for you to be the core of our lives, God. When everything else fails, when you are the center of our life, we will still have that joy. We will still have that peace. We will still have, Father, the strength of the Lord with us. We will still be walking with you hand in hand. We will still be in that narrow way. We will, Father, see you face. So, Father, I pray through these coming days, Lord, that we would make it a priority to make you the center of our life every day. As difficult as it may seem, Lord, may you be the core of our life. And I pray, Father, that you would bless your people. Lord, I pray your hand would rest upon them as we go from this place. And I ask, God, that the joy of the Lord would be our strength, so that when we walk, we will not be disheartened. We will run, and we will not fail in our running. And we will rise up with wings as eagles, Lord. So, Lord, I pray your hand upon us now this day. Bless our fellowship and the food to our bodies' use, Lord, and to our souls' delight. May we have time together with one another. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. God bless you.